When you've imported the projector pack, you should be seeing this folder over here with projector, and it contains 3 blueprints, and you can choose between a decal, a light-based or a material-based projector. If you want all features to work, make sure you also have a movies folder here, and make sure that there are some movie files in there as well in Explorer. And then everything should work if you are using Unreal Engine 4. If you are using Unreal Engine 5, I would also go over here to Edit, Plugins, and search for Electra. Make sure that this player is enabled as well. And that should make sure that everything runs the way it should. To give you a little example of what you can do with this pack, I will place a cube here, so you have a wall. And with that, I will select my preferred projector. I'll go with the light for now. And this gives me a light-based projector. It comes with a whole bunch of options, so you can play with them as you like. We have the RGB offset for offsetting RGB values. Let's see here if it loads. Yes, so now we have RGB value changes. We can change the attenuation radius because it is a light, so we can play with those if we like. So if we go up here, you can see that it goes much further or much less. We have an outer cone angle and inner cone angle. We can change intensities as well for the brightness. There are a few settings for indirect lighting as well, which is just the default settings that you have for your spotlights. Then for the picture, there is an option to go and change the aspect ratio. And to make it a bit easier, we just have an horizontal and vertical input. So if it's 16:9, you just type in 16 and 9. If it's 4:3, you can type in 4:3, and it'll be 4:3 instead. You can just play around with these as well and just get any custom aspect ratio as you wish. Let's move it back to 16:9. You can also zoom in your picture and zoom out your picture, if that is what you like. Do be aware that if you zoom out, there will be some stretching because everything is currently set to clamped, which means that the corners will stretch and not repeat. You could also make it repeat, but then you have to change those settings in the material or in your texture. The resolution specifies the resolution of your actual display. So it's not going to be super easy to see with this image here, but if you change the resolution here to, let's say, 320, it makes the pixels bigger. And if you want the pixels to fit the actual visuals, you can also specify it here by forcing it to follow the pixel resolution. And based on that, even if I make it 10, it will still force it into specific colors for each pixel. Alright, so this would be full HD. You can choose to not have any scan lines, so if we zoom in here, we can disable the scan lines or enable them. We can also choose, instead of an image, to have a video to show up. And currently, let's check which video we have, because currently we don't have the video to play automatically. So if we go down on our media inputs, we can select this one to play the video on construction, and this will just always play the video even before you press play over here. So this is currently a rainbow visual that I created for testing. It's also more easily to see now if we change the resolution to something low, that you can get some pretty cool effects. Of course, we can also choose to go for a widget. In this case, it will select the widget that I created for testing here as well. And you could also change the keystone. So let's go back to the video and change the keystone values. Over here you can do a vertical keystone change and a horizontal keystone change. Then for our inputs, if we select an image, make sure that the image that you want is actually specified over here for the image. So if we change this to something else, let's say this normal map here, and I go back to my image, it will load the normal map instead. And we can of course change it to anything we like to make it work. Then for the border mask, you can also choose a different type. So currently what I've done is there is an image in here with a resolution of 1K, and I use this to specify the blurriness of the border. So if I make this, let's say, a bit smaller, then our border will also have a bit of a softer blur at the edge. Now if you don't want any of this at all, that's fine as well. You can also fix the border to the pixel resolution that you're using, and then it sharpens it somewhat, but you can still see there's a little bit of a fade here. And if you make it bigger, so a maximum of 2K in this case, you will see that it's very sharp. So this helps to soften the edge a little bit if you like. You can of course also choose different border masks. So let's say you want a circle instead. You can have a circle as well if you want. And because our aspect ratio is currently 16:9, it creates a capsule. And we can go back here and change that resolution and kind of play with the shapes a little bit. We could also choose, if we say for example we make it 9:9, this is a perfect circle. And we use a triangle, let's use this one. Now it's a triangle. So you really put any shape in there that you like. For scan lines you can also choose what you like. So if we want a different type of scan line, you can get a different type of scan line. So let's enable the scan lines again. Let's reduce the quality somewhat. You can see here that the scan line becomes these shapes. For the video we have a file media source reference. So currently we have one for a presentation and for colors. And based on the specific video that you've chosen, it will load that specific file. And that's mostly it for the features for this projector. Of course you can also choose not to use lights. Lights are pretty heavy, especially if the shadows are enabled. These are 3 spotlights that are working together to get all the colors working. So if you don't want that, there's of course also an alternative. So you can go here, let's delete this one, yeah. And we have a decal as well, so we can use that. So let's move that one over. Yeah. Let's make it a bit smaller. Okay. So now we have a decal, and it has mostly the same options, but because it's not a light, I've added a few shadow features. So you could potentially say, let's add a cone here. And let's pretend that the light is coming from this corner here, so there should be a shadow over there somewhere. Then we can specify that here by adding a mask, and we can play with the size of this mask, both in X and Y, and then we can move it where we'd like it to be to block whatever light we want to block. This feature is also in the next blueprint, which is the material based one, which is currently just using a plane as a previewer. But here of course we could also go in. And it's currently set to additive to make it look a bit more like the rest. Let's delete this one. So this one has the same features with the fake shadow mask. It's just missing the features for the lighting, which makes sense because it's not a light. And those are the features that you'll be getting with the spec. There's also a folder called Maps. If you go here, there's 3 demo scenes set up. One is the overview, so let's open that one. This gives you a little overview of everything with a bit of text and information. So to make everything work in Unreal Engine 5, there's a little bit of information here. There are a few examples as well on some of the features, so you can just go over them to get a better idea of what's available. And then we have another video with documentation. This one plays a documentation video when we press play. You can also see that I've applied one of those blueprints to a TV as a material, just to show you that there is an option to do that as well, if that is what you prefer. And then lastly, we have the demo level, where if you open the sequencer over here, open level sequence, we can press play and you can see it do all kinds of cool stuff that you could potentially do with this blueprint.